Hello, everyone. My name is Tara All, and welcome back to EA Zoom meetings. I'm extra excited today because I have been working on this EA Zoom series, We Are the Planets, for almost 2 years, and this is the final video episode. And I've got Stian and Christine and Shelly with me, and they have truly perfect charts to talk about the sun. So I feel like it's just all aligned perfectly. I'm actually literally today having my exact third hit of Saturn opposing my sun. So I feel that it just all has, which has not all been fun, but it's happening. And it's happening now. And this is, I saved the sun for last for the series. So the very center of it all, we're going there now. So I'm super happy that you're here, and I'm super happy to be wrapping this up, and then we'll see what comes next. But for now, let's just get right in. And like usual, I prepared a few slides just to talk about the sun and talk about planets first a little bit, but we're going to spend most of the time getting into charts because my favorite thing is just the discussion that we have with each other, with the volunteers. What the heck? Okay. That button doesn't work, but this one does. Okay, so choosing planets first. So for 6 years, this actually is the 6th year that I have been actively living planets first in my own life, and then of course working with it, teaching and with my clients, but first and foremost with myself. And for those of you who don't know, I know many of you do, so just bear with me when I recap a little bit here. But the technique Planets on the First is literally just choosing a planet that you want to be like the focalizing crystal or lens through which you sort of experience your life. And I started working with this technique about 6 years ago. At the time I was working with my teacher, Adam Gainsbourg, and I was really struggling with being in my head a lot. I have a South Node in Gemini, so you know my brain is active, and I wanted to be more heart-centered, more present in my body and in my heart. And so his suggestion was, and I was worried about astrology. I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like there's so much of a headiness to it for me. And so his suggestion was, I think you might like this technique. And this technique is you basically, technically, you choose a planet and you rotate the chart so that that planet is on your ascendant. And then from that new perspective, you live your life. So the first time I did it, I chose Venus first. And so I prepared myself a little bit. So what are the things that I know about Venus? What does Venus mean to me? What might life be like if every moment I'm looking at it through a Venusian lens, if you will? And I did that for a whole year with Venus. And by the end of that time, not only did I discover new parts of myself, like in huge ways that I hadn't recognized were even there or different than I thought, I had a new relationship with Venus. And so that has propelled me to keep on doing this, choosing a new planet every year, to work with planets this way. So it's more of an experiential living, you know, like the way I call it, like astrology as a living meditation, because you're not just talking about Jupiter or Mercury, you're literally tuning into that part of yourself and seeing what happens when it comes to the head of the table. I think of all the planets in us, all different aspects of our psyche. And so if you think about all those different players, if you will, kind of all being around a table, we just tend to default to one or two more than the rest. It's just what we all do. The other analogy I like to use is if we were a huge house with all kinds of property, most of us would spend most of our time in one area. That's kind of what we do with our perspective. So the idea with Planets First is, well, if you spend all your time in the basement, what if you go out in the backyard for a while? And that's sort of what it's like if you were a real Saturn-oriented person to all of a sudden choosing Venus, for example. It just changes everything. It's all still in you, but it's a new experience of it. So that's how that part works. And it really is, to me, like looking through a new lens. And it's not that something is actually different. It's just the way you look at it. And we all know this, that perception or perspective changes everything. So when you choose to look through a different lens, you get a different view of the same stuff that's there. But I don't know, you know, for myself, and some of you can probably share when we get to the volunteer part too, like Shelly, you may have played around with this. I have been amazed what and how I see differently when I do this exercise with myself. Okay. So when we move even just a little bit, in our mind, in our emotional state, in our consciousness, everything else realigns, and then our world is new. It doesn't take a lot. One little adjustment, everything else is different. You know, you can go on a quote unquote trip anytime you want. You don't need plant medicine or drugs or some crazy, spiritual pilgrimage. You can one little switch and you can do it. So today we're going to talk about the sun and what it might feel like if we were to choose living the sun first. What's it like to meet every moment from the sun's with the lens of the sun, and keeping in mind that the sun is not the same for all of us, right? That there's a difference for all of us, but there are similarities and of course there's differences, which is one reason why volunteers are so awesome with this. But one of the things a long time ago that really stuck with me is that Nuno Michaels was presenting something, and he's an astrologer from Portugal. And he was talking about how, everybody talks about Venus as being the planet of love. And he just kind of laughed and he said, why would we say that? He's like, it's the sun that rises every morning to meet us. He's like, how is that not the planet of love? And of course, we know that all the planets are planets of love because everything is love. But just from this perspective, I looked at the sun differently. And so for me, there is this aspect of, it's true, right? At least how our planet is every morning. Now, I know depending on where we live, if we're in Norway, when the sun is out is not always the same as it is for, me in Los Angeles. But yeah, there's a steady predictability of, we know that light's going to be there and we depend on it. So everything in the chart is infused with the sun. This is similar to how we talk about everything in the chart being conditioned by Saturn. Everything in the chart is infused with the sun. So just like the sun infuses our planet Earth that we live on here, it's the primary ray in the solar system within and without. And in esoteric astrology, the sun is linked with ray 2, which is the ray of love and wisdom, the primary ray. So at any time we're working with the sun, we are always working with the central energy. It's easy for us to forget this, especially us as evolutionary astrologers, because certainly Pluto weighs so heavily into our work, and so do the nodes. And I'm not taking away from that at all. I still go there first. I am an evolutionary astrologer, and I still will. But the sun is the center. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but it is the cohesive part, the energy that holds it all together. So some of the things that the sun represents, your sense of purpose and the nature of your spirit. I was taking a walk this morning or this afternoon before this started, and because I thought it would probably be, maybe I should go out in the sun before I actually talked about the sun, would be a good choice. So I was out there strolling along, and it was really bright. And I recognized, again, I already know this, but I can't just look at the sun, not without some serious consequences to, it will burn my retinas. And it made me think about, though, that's the sun in us, right? That's that spirit essence in us that is so bright that other people and ourselves, we can't just directly look at it. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but it's the moon part of us, just like how the moon reflects the sun in the sky and we can look at it. The moon part of us, the human part of us, the body part of us, that actually is able to reflect that spirit. So I can look at you and see it in you, and you can look at me and see it in me. But it just made me pause for a minute and think about how I just can't look at it, and there's always a part of me that kind of wants to, I really want to look at that big, bright presence. So the sun is also the quality or type of energy we run on. Sometimes I think about it this way, like your rising sign is like the vehicle that you get around in, but the sun is actually the fuel that vehicle runs on. Sun is also linked with physical vitality. And ultimately, for me, it's the vitality of consciousness. And so when I say this, we don't have like a solid definition for some of this stuff. And with the sun, to me, we get into like a spiritual territory where I'm not going to try to fully define it because it's not definable that way. Part of the sun is an essence that can't be captured in words. It's a thing, but we can feel it and we know it. So the sun is also the energy that you radiate, or how you shine, just being. You're just being you, and it just is the energy that radiates from you and that radiates around you naturally. The sun also links up with your hero's journey. So if you're a Joseph Campbell fan, you can kind of think of it in that context, that also in the chart, any planets that are in aspect to the sun, those are allies on your hero's journey. It's almost like you're linked arms with them. You're going along with them. When we get into the volunteers who all have lots of aspects to their sun, we'll be talking about those are allies on that journey. And then ultimately, to me, the sun represents life. So like today, when we're talking about living sun first needs to feel alive. If you're not feeling it, if you're not feeling the juice, if you're not feeling the vibe, if you're not feeling turned on about things, there is a similarity to Mars. They're not the same, but both of those planets, sun, of course, being a luminary, but we call it a planet, it's about being alive. It's about having the shine, shining out and having the shine in and come out. So sunlight, and I talked about this briefly, but this is the only, I think, long slide I'll have. So the sun, like I was saying, it's bright, right? You can't look at it directly without burning your retina. It's intense and it's hot. So too much sun dehydrates us, drains our energy, burns our skin, right? Too much exposure to the sun and we will die. But without any sun, we die as well. So with the sun, just the same as it is outside, with the sun in us, it's about finding the right balance. Finding the right balance of turning on enough light so that you stay in the glow, in the shine, in the healthy vitality without giving too much. And this is true too, like when you're showing up in other people's lives, like how do you turn on just the right amount of shine? Not too much, not too little. So, and people that have strong place sun, I mean, we all have it, but especially people with strong place suns in their chart, this is something to really pay attention to. Because it's just like when you go outside, one quick look and damage happens. That can happen with the sun. We don't think about this very much, but the sun it's a force. So think of your own sun self, right? If you were pure spirit, if we were not incarnated right now, we could run that energy full force. At least that's my belief. But our human minds and bodies can't handle it. So we need enough sun to stay strong and healthy and motivated, but not so much that we burn out. It's an interesting balance. And it's so easy because the sun is the part that is like attached to our consciousness, like our daytime selves. It's very easy to overdo our sun energy at the expense of our moon. There's an astrologer, Larry Martin, who years ago mentioned that to me. He said, don't overdo your sun at the expense of your moon. So what I say here is remember that moonlight is sunlight. And think about this even in your chart. This is like super cool to me to think about, right? They're not separate at all. The moon is reflected sunlight. So anytime you're working with the moon, you're working with the sun. Anytime you work with the sun, you're working with the moon. You can't separate them, but we think about it separately all the time. And so just like in the sky, your moon is reflecting your sun in a way that you can digest it and absorb it here on Earth. So, the moon is so much linked with our humanity, but again, it's the way that we can share and experience and embody and express that spirit self, which is pretty cool. But if you think about it this way, so if you have a Capricorn sun, that's the nature of your vitality or your consciousness energy, but the moon has so much to do with how you literally are reflecting and embodying that. One thing I want to mention that's not in the slides here, and this links back to esoteric astrology again, is that the sun being the vitality of consciousness, the earth is where that vitality of consciousness is expressed. And I know most of us don't work with earth in the chart as much. It's always the exact polarity to your sun. So it's just something to think about. So for example, I have sun at 28 degrees Cancer. That is my vitality of consciousness. That is my life force energy that I am really the purpose that I'm meant to work with in this lifetime. But the way that I manifest it, the way that I actually give it in service in this life is through Earth, the polarity point, which is 28 degrees Capricorn. So something to think about too, right? The sun, and even in the tarot, the sun card is all about co-creation. The sun doesn't mean anything by itself. Without a solar system, what is the point of the sun? So anytime when we're working with the sun in our charts, also it's about thinking about how we co-create with life. So let's keep thinking about working together, because this is to me, a big important part of the sun that sometimes we don't pay as much attention to. We think about sun, sometimes people talk about it being ego, and there is all that part linked in with it, although in evolutionary astrology, we look more to the moon for that. But I feel like the sun really helps show the kind of energy you bring to the table, to life, to actually co-create with other people. So the sun is the center of spirit, integrates everything in our solar system. It's a planet of cohesion that unites. So your sun sign, along with the house that it's in and the aspects, show how you're coming together in the present lifetime. So that central energy is super powerful. And when you align with it, it helps you get and be more of you, because the sun is self-actualization. And then just a few sun correspondences. So I mentioned this before. In esoteric astrology, the sun aligns with ray 2, and that ray is the ray of love wisdom. The purpose of life is to generate consciousness, including consciousness about who we are, which is why we sort of play this game of hide and seek of, if I put myself into this incarnated being, what can I find out about me? But the purpose of life to generate consciousness, and from that consciousness, love arises. That's a more esoteric view of the sun, but it feels right to me. I don't like just really, to me, the sun oftentimes gets, I don't know, oversimplified. I guess what I'm saying here is, to me, there's a much more spiritual side to the sun that we don't talk about as much. So the sun radiates love and the vitality of consciousness. The planet Earth is where that vitality and consciousness is expressed. And that expression is about fulfilling our earthly purpose. And like I was saying, the Earth opposes the sun in the chart. So you don't even need to look it up to know where your Earth is. It's opposed your sun. Now, in the tarot, in addition to the sun card, there's a number of cards that are linked with the sun, but one that I like in particular to work with sun energy is the Three of Wands. And the Three of Wands is the card of integrity, and it's linked with the sun in Aries. I did an EA Zoom meeting just a few weeks ago. It was the part 2 of Mars retrograde, and Steve Wolfson specifically talked about, he said his main job, his number one job, is to be in integrity with himself. And as I was getting this ready, it made me think of that, because that is the sun. And that is this card. To be in integrity with self requires alignment between body, mind, and spirit. To be centered in yourself, perceiving from your heart, and then showing it through your words and actions. That's how the center of the sun then infuses through everything. So, some living sun first questions. One thing that helps me, so especially when I started this exercise out, living planets first, is and on my website, if you're interested, I have free tools on there as well. Just to think of if you're going to choose sun first, let's say you realize, oh, and all of you practicing, this is really useful if someone has a retrograde planet, a skip step, or anything like you can tell in the chart that they just haven't been able to really bring it to fruition. This is such a good way to reconnect with it. Or let's just say that someone maybe has lived really strong Saturn, but that Saturn experience hasn't been super positive for them. It's a way to develop a new relationship with the planet. So from a therapeutic standpoint, that's how I look at it oftentimes. If I get to the end of a session with someone and we've been talking about Jupiter nonstop, I then oftentimes will suggest this. Okay, we've talked about this so much now, this might be a good thing for you. So if you're thinking about it therapeutically, there's just some ideas here. So sun first, living sun first questions. And these questions, by the way, it's not meant to hold a list and run around with it. Like the whole idea of living planets first is supposed to be organic, but sometimes we need something to get us going. And that's really all I'm suggesting here. Because my hope for all of you, if you do this, and for me, every time I do it, is that when I'm done with one living meditation with a planet, is I learn new things about the planet that I couldn't have put in the list before. That's the whole point. You come up with something that's more true to you. But for sun first, any moment you show up in, do you feel energized? Because if that room, that person, that thing is draining your energy, sun first isn't happening. Something else is happening. So if you're wanting to live sun first, that's something to pay attention to. Do I feel energized? Can I shine here? You can ask yourself that question, while you're at work, while you're doing, with a friend, while you're doing whatever it is, but can I shine? Is the essence of who I really am, can it come through here? And then do I feel alive? Am I seen? Will I feel proud? There's a certain a link with the sun, like this idea of being proud of myself for being and doing what I am, for going after my purpose. So to live sun first, you need to create situations for yourself where you can make yourself proud. This doesn't mean you have to measure yourself up against other people, but measure yourself up against yourself. Have you gone further than you have before? Have you challenged yourself in a new way you haven't gone before? Are you taking a new risk you haven't taken before? Are you letting yourself be seen in a way you haven't before? Then is my heart in it, right? Sun rules Leo. When it comes to sun first, if your heart's not in it, if you don't feel some inner child coming out that, wants to play, that wants to enjoy it, it's also probably not sun first. And by the way, there's no problem with not living sun first. This is for all of us who might want to do sun first. Some people already have an overabundance of sun, and that's not necessarily what they need to choose. And then, does it feel like me? I feel like the true essence of the sun is the more truth of self coming through. So with sun first, there'd be more and more moments of, wow, I really feel like me right now. Is it aligned with my purpose? Is it the best use of my vital energy? And then, of course, does it light me up, and does it light others up? You can watch it, right? Show up to a Zoom room. Clearly, we're not doing things in person right now, but you can tell, like, if people are being lit up by what you share, what you do, are you feeling lit up by what you do, what you share? Then the sun's there. If you're bringing more life to yourself and to other people around you, the sun's there. This is a quote by Marcus Aurelius. It's from the Meditations book. The soul as a sphere in equilibrium, not grasping at things beyond it or retreating inward, not fragmenting outward, not sinking back on itself, but ablaze with light and looking at the truth within and without. I was reading that recently, and it felt like the true essence of the sun to me. And of course, Marcus Aurelius will be linked with the Stoicism, and Stoicism talks about how we're all suns becoming. So that whole feeling of literally, you could even imagine maybe at some point in time we will be the center of a solar system as that light. We don't know, but I like the idea of it. Okay, volunteer time. And Stian, you are going to go first with me. So you can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi. And let me drag this bar. For the people that are like me, who don't watch and listen, we're going to give them some stats about your chart here, Stian. So you have got Sun in Gemini in the 10th house. It is in a T-square, square to Saturn in Pisces in the 7th house, Chiron in Virgo in the 1st house. It's quincunx, Neptune conjunct Uranus in Capricorn in the 5th house. So that's already a lot going on, right? I would say to start. And since we're EA, Pluto in the 3rd house, South node is in Taurus in the 9th house, and North node in Scorpio in the 3rd house. So Stian, there's definitely some comments that I have, but I would first just like to hear if you maybe want to just share, now that we've talked about the sun in general a little bit, tell us about your sun. Like, how does it feel? What does the sun feel like in you? How do you know when your sun, is like really shining? How do you know when it's not?
It's easy. It's simple. Because when I was told that I was gonna volunteer for this, I thought about my sun, and it's like the only archetype in my chart that I have not analyzed or have some opinion or grasp on. And that was so weird to realize that all the other archetypes I can talk a lot about, but the sun, this is it. Like, okay, wow, I am really the sun. how can I talk about, interpret this archetype without being it? Like it's not something I can look at, like you say.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like being it. So I just gotta trust it. Like when I'm in flow, I'm in my sun, and when I'm not in flow, I'm still the sun, but not like recognizing myself. So yeah.
What would you say? So another thing that I was looking at here. So your sun's in Gemini, but the ruler of your sun is Mercury retrograde
Yeah.
in Gemini, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that Mercury is conjunct Venus. This is all
Mm-hmm.
up in the 10th house, which oftentimes, like I put a note down here, like, how are you using your voice? How are you using your words? How are you expressing? How are you communicating? Because of course, Mercury conjunct Venus is a signature of a poet or a writer or one who creates, beauty with words. But with a Mercury retrograde, sometimes that doesn't come very naturally. So, but it's all up in the 10th house, meaning, like it's meant to
Yeah.
have a presence in the world. So what
Mm-hmm.
what is your relationship with that? And maybe you could share with us if you're willing, like, do you
When
yeah.
when I speak, people listen. It's always been a thing that if I open my mouth and I speak, it has an effect on people, no matter what the effect is. And so I only speak. I only mean what I say. I only speak. I shut up until I have something to say, and it's very like true and pure. It's always been that way. Even though, yeah. So I like to speak online. I like to make videos. I like to be a leader, and people listen, and I have a great effect on people. I don't know what the effect is. That is not my business, but I can feel the effect on other people reflected back to me. It's powerful because it's like the Saturn in the seventh also, that they are also affecting me by their, like, we're together presence, and so it's not like some ego thing that I'm affecting them. It's like, whoa, like we're present together, like anything can happen, yeah.
So that T square, meaning that Saturn square your sun and then Chiron squaring it from the other side, well, it's a T square, right? And so the sun is actually where the tension is released. At least that's normally
Yeah.
how I look at a T square, right? There's these challenges going on, there's all this energy available, but then the T square, where the point is, right, is where the release of tension is.
Yeah.
What does it feel like when you're communicating? Like, does it feel good?
It feels it doesn't have, it feels like silent. It's inside me, it feels like peaceful. It doesn't have to feel like good or bad, or it's very peaceful inside me when I talk, even though I have any kind of bad or good effect. So, but I also, like, if I'm aware that my body, like Chiron in Virgo first, my body is like living a different kind of style. So I may not be telling you with my body what I am saying. So I may say something and my body may say another, and the truth is another and another. It doesn't matter. Really, it feels silent for me to speak. I don't take it so seriously either, because I can't really figure out anything that the mind wants to. Um,
It's interesting.
And I must say, like, what's the difference between Uranus in the fifth there and the Sun in the 10th there? Like, I don't know the difference between Uranus and the Sun. I feel like a Uranus like a lot, but is that my moon? Like, what's the difference here? I can talk forever, but I will not be. I can only. I am the sun. Like, I cannot see it, like you say.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the like in astrology, I mean, we break all this stuff down and say this means this means this means that, right? And it works for us most of the time. But as beings, like we're not really broken down that way anyway. So like the line between the sun versus Uranus, like you're asking, I don't know, it's different for everybody.
Hmm.
To me, Uranus in the fifth house speaks to, well, there's a couple things. From an evolutionary astrology perspective, there can be past trauma, like from past lives, of trying to express oneself, trying to share your creativity, or trying to kind of do the thing you love and get people excited about it and show it to them, and maybe they didn't always like it. It also just shows unusual creativity or innovative creativity, right? So Uranus in the fifth house, the ones that I have in my life, most of them are very, like, oftentimes they're quite creative artists, but it may be unusual, meaning, it may not be what the mainstream likes, or it may be different. And because the fifth house is such a place of self-actualization, and Uranus kind of likes to do its own thing, there can be a little bit of a, I don't know, like a rebel attitude. I really just want to kind of do my own thing. The sun in the 10th house, to me, there's a big piece of this tied in, I feel, to what you have to give back to community, right? To you and especially with that Mercury retrograde up there,
Mm-hmm.
there's, and it's interesting because Mercury retrograde is different for everyone. Some people, it just makes, so I don't think retrograde planets are weak. Let me just say this. To me, retrograde planets, if anything, sometimes are stronger because there's like an intensity to them. And retrograde planets also all have a Uranian flavor to them because there's a need to sort of liberate, in this case, Mercury, the way you think, to sort of reclaim your own thinking, to kind of go inside and figure out your own way of making sense of things. But the 10th house always in some level speaks to what you can give to society, what you give to people who will never know you personally. Which is why
Thank you.
which is why I was asking a bit about how you feel when you communicate, because I feel
It
that
feels like I'm always talking to myself. I'm always like reflecting about life. Like, I'm always, if people ask me questions, I usually look another way and I start reflecting back. I don't have some advice or wisdom to them directly, but I know that this can be. But it's like I'm here for me, but I know I have this effect that's very powerful. I was at the ceremony this new moon in Scorpio, and it was really powerful. Like, wow, I felt so much, solar energy, like just being me and just, just being me, and wherever I had a say, wherever I had a statement or just a beingness, and it would come and it would align to the group, and we were there together like solar beings, like you say.
Yeah.
It's simple to work with other people when we are in a sacred space of light and giving, and then it doesn't become like narcissistic or any kind of low energy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I guess I think this would be one. I just wonder how you feel about this. So, especially with Saturn squaring the sun, like, and listening to you, there's just like there's a real freedom to how you speak. Like I hear what you're saying. Like I think you maybe just feel like an open channel, right? Saturn
Yes.
almost always challenges us, I don't know, to get a little more organized, right? To get a little more disciplined, to really think about what you might, I don't want to make it sound like a business, you know, but I do feel like there's a lot you could do with that Gemini energy. And that part of the reason why you have that Saturn square there is for you to actually pay attention to how you could get it more organized, right? How you could turn it into something more tangible. And, you know, I don't know what that looks like for you. It's not to lose a free spiritedness, but it's at the same time, when Saturn's up against something, there's an important work for you to do.
Yes, certainly.
You know? And so I don't know what that is exactly, but it feels like it's important.
Yeah, thank you. I feel that it shows up. Well, I have to show up for me, very present. The seventh house, yeah, it's relationships, but I'm living here alone at this cabin, so I gotta show up for myself and be my own seventh house, and I can. To be able to work with this energy, I mean, I'm only 25. I haven't even had my Saturn return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Stian, I think this is funny, and especially with Saturn there, and then with the square to Chiron and Virgo, which brings Earth energy, with the quincunx to Neptune and Uranus that are in Capricorn, more Earth energy. I think a lot of this is about embodying, like literally, like your spirit, which I could just feel it. Like it's just like, it's not very contained. And with that stuff in the 10th house, the 10th, like in some ways, I think this is about finding a container for yourself. And once you find the container, you can harness that energy. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't, something, this is not any kind of thing about being a right or wrong, but you have, I feel like you have an opportunity in this lifetime to harness, you know, that sun energy we talked about being just like the spirit that's kind of uncontainable, can't look at it. You have an opportunity to harness more of that energy and to actually do things with it on this earth plane. That to me is big. Yeah. And you're right. You're only 25. Like you have the whole. But the fact that we're having this conversation now when you're 25 means that when you're 35, just imagine what imagine if you what you could do with your awareness. You know, if you're.
I'm ready. I've been ready for many years, and this Earth plane seems to go so slow compared to my state of awareness. And it doesn't mean that I'm over anything. It just means that, wow, like my Uranus went back into Capricorn. Like I was a free being and something happened, and where's my notes? And I'm like in this plane again, and now I have to embody it. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's a big, but it's also not as slow and boring as you think. Like I really believe, like if you can, once you get in, you know, once you let yourself get in, there's things that you can only do here when you are more embodied. So all of us who came to this planet, I mean, we've come here to do that. If we just wanted to be light beings, we wouldn't be here. So, you know, for any of us that have a bunch of earth stuff weighing on us, like that's a big part of it. Yeah. So of course you're going to feel, I mean, somebody who's used to levity is going to have, you know, gravity is going to feel limiting. And with Saturn square your sun, you've chosen to feel those limits because you're meant to work within the limits. So, you know, it's not a bad thing. It's just different.
I want to point out that, I'm all in with that. But my North Node is also Scorpio and my South Node Taurus. So I feel this Earth energy well, and this water energy is like more mysterious, and I feel like I just want to point out the nodal axis that
It's huge. Yeah. Yeah. No, you, and then the North Node's back in the third house, more communication, more mind stuff. So there's nowhere in your chart we can go that we get away from. You came here to use your mind in a new way. That's exciting, right? I mean, the mind,
Yeah.
I don't mean just the monkey brain. I mean, the mind is an exciting thing to explore. So, yeah. Do you have
Thank
anything else
you.
to share, Stian, before we go on to Christine?
I have Leo in the 12th house, and that's another pointer that,
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm here at this cabin, this is where I beam, and I don't need to show anyone. Like, presence is within, and it's here, like it's in the sacred space of oneself. So cheers to the sun.
Thank you, Stian. Cheers. Christine, you want to unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so let's give people the little rundown. If I miss something, you jump in and correct me. So you have Sun in Capricorn in the 4th house. It is in a grand cardinal square, which is very exciting, opposing the moon in Cancer. And then we've got Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries. And then it's Pluto in Libra, right? Did I miss any other main aspects, Christine?
You've got it.
Yeah, and that's big. I mean, we could just probably talk about that all day. And I'll mention too, just the karmic axis, evolutionary axis. We have Pluto in the 1st house, which is part of that Grand Cross, and then the South Node is Leo in the 11th house, and the North Node is Aquarius in the 5th house. But it has a different flavor because it's conjunct Venus. And I'm saying this because normally when we see a South Node in Leo and North Node in Aquarius, we oftentimes talk about, needing to a little bit step out, be a little more objective, maybe a little bit more detached. But conjunct Venus really shows still being closely connected. So I'm just saying that there's a little bit of a different flavor here than oftentimes we see. But I want to hear from you, Christine, just about this. I mean, and you don't have to like make it apply directly to your Grand Cross, like just talk about your life, but kind of the way Stian talked about. And it's funny, Stian, just watching him, you could see how he like just lives in this sort of essence space. I was a little bit like in awe of like, I felt like a very like human bound creature watching him in his little like shiny space. But it was kind of like watching the sun. And then even to have him say that he's never even thought to even think about his son. It's like, it's just so natural. It just happens. Perfect. So what's your relationship with the sun?
Well, it was interesting in your intro talking about the shift of lenses, because right now, and even over the last year, what's been really in my face is a shift of perception. And finding the flow in that, and nothing needs to change. If I literally go from this to this, it's like, oh, yeah. Okay, I don't have to do anything out here. It's just this all of a shift of the changing the lenses within, and that's where the flow is. And now it's almost like, my higher self's got her eye on me. It's like if I try to control anything or move anything in a direction that I think it needs to go, it just hits me. It's like immediate. It's like brick wall. I'm like, okay, I surrender. And and just life bringing me things and then taking it away, and me allowing and accepting and not clinging and not hanging. And again, another shift of perception. And there's so much freedom in just that shifting of, and the joy is in that moment. And it just changes everything. And it's literally an internal, as you know, it's just this internal lens shift. And it's like, oh, everything is perfect.
Yeah. And and you have, so your sun in Capricorn, but it's in the 4th house. So the 4th house is a very personal orientation. My son's in the 4th house too. And so I think, I'm that shifting of perception, especially when you've got the sun in the 4th house, it does re-illuminates everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if within your sun in Capricorn, like what's your relationship with that? So some people, I mean, Capricorn can mean so many different things. And it gets talked about oftentimes as, oh, just being overly responsible or working hard or whatever. And to me, it does not always that way. So what is it?
I think my earlier years of Capricorn would have been that, and just be, planning and controlling and just this linear, which is not, as I birth myself, not what my spirit wants at all.
Okay.
And it's much more fluid now, and trusting. And I realize that a lot of the lenses were cultural lenses or family lenses, and it's just like you take those off, and it's just like, oh my God, this is a whole new world out here. And yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Capricorn is a yin or feminine sign. Like it's receptive.
Yeah.
So,
and I haven't been that, but I'm becoming that. It's amazing to watch myself, and which is, just to let my sun shine, to let that come through, and not go, no, not too bright, not too.
right. Yeah. So with this Grand Cross, does some of it, like, how does it so sometimes when people have these types of configurations, like one part's comfortable, right? And then one part is like the part that you project on other people or whatnot. So like for example, like the square from your sun to Mars Chiron in Aries. Do you have any comments on that? So, and by the way, maybe we just mentioned that the cardinal Grand Cross is all about identity, because it's literally highlighting every cardinal sign. This is all about like how I show up in the world versus how I am in my private life, in my family, how I am in a partnership, how I am out there in the world. So when all that stuff is sort of having, I think about aspects just as big conversations, right? There's a big freaking conversation going on in you about that, right? So who wins most of the time is my kind of what I'm wondering, like, how has that felt?
No, it's interesting. So much of this has come to my awareness lately, whether, it's friends sharing with me how they see me with certain people versus other people, how they see me, and, alone, and how I adjust myself to different circumstances for my own, for acceptance with these people, and just watching myself to just be who I am at all times, no matter who is reflecting back to me. And so that that has been interesting. And it's like my higher self does not let me get away with any of it anymore. It's just like, you just sat up straighter because so-and-so walked in the room or whatever. And it's just like, no, I'm going to relax. It's okay. Like I can just be me and let my son come through and just be that, and not have to make it not alter it to fit the external.
Yeah, I made a note, and when I was looking at your chart, because as I was looking at everything, this is my note, we can take it or leave it, but I think part of this lifetime, it's not about staying alone, and I put alone in quotes because I don't think you've really been alone, but I put it's not about staying alone or doing it alone this time. But in the past, so I said not to stay alone and do it alone this time with false partners, because I feel like in past lives or in past times, there was like a lot of relationship going on, but I don't know how authentic it was.
Yeah. And so I can totally speak to that in this lifetime, that, from birth, I felt, it's just, I felt alone. And because of that, I'm the only one that can take care of myself. I'm the one that needs to be in control. I need to keep, all the ducks in a row because nobody's going to do it for me. And it's just like, I want to let go of that and trust that it's okay to let somebody else come in and carry a bag or whatever. And that's definitely speaks to me.
Well, because it's never, I mean, any of us, and I have different signature than you, but I have Aries rising, and then I have a lot of stuff in my, 7th house. So when anyone, we're trying to balance what I call the me and the we, like it's just always this weird, like, and you got Pluto in the 1st house. So the polarity point is the 7th house, but then you have Mars conjunct Chiron and Aries in the 7th house. So it really is about finding a balance of how you can be authentically you and be authentically in relationship with other people. And that just doesn't always come easy, But then you're born with a full moon. Moon is all about relationship and gaining awareness, right? So again, like it's and I didn't get the feeling at all like that you like have avoided relationships. It was just more like, how true were they, and did they reflect the real you, and did you reflect the real them? And and fourth house stuff, you know, you've got, you have also Mercury and Jupiter in the fourth house, and fourth house, I have a lot of planets in the fourth house too. It's always about consciously forming our self-identity.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have strong stuff there, it's about, you know, getting into our own psyche enough to then actually decide, yeah, this is how and who I want to be out there.
Yeah.
And for most people, things in the fourth house don't come early. You know, typically we have to get a little older. It's almost like sometimes it's like getting younger as you get older, because you finally realize this is it. You know, I may look older now, but I'm feeling younger on the inside. And again, I was mentioning with this relationship thing is such a big deal for you because the North Node is conjunct Venus, you know, so, and they're in Aquarius, which is like, that's ultimate authenticity, right?
Mm-hmm.
How to have authentic relationship. And to me, Venus is all our relationships with life, with ourselves, with others, you know, with nature. But, you know, there's I think, I feel like a sense of reclaiming a naturalness. So it's fun to hear you share that part too, that
absolutely
that's part of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to, at the end, I'm going to come back, and because I want everyone to, at some point, to just share with everyone, if you were to give advice to someone, if they wanted to bring more sun into their life, or to live more sun first, or to be, you know, what would you, you know, what's your advice to someone?
I think for me, I just feel when I bump up against that resistance, it's like breathe and be in it. And if it's still there, just course correct. But, you know, for me, 9 times out of 10, the resistance dissolves because the resistance has been in me. And then, you know, instead of guarding against the situation, it's softened to the situation.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, it goes, if there's nothing to bump up against, you know, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, it just floats through, and it's just like, I can be in this. I don't have to change anything here. It's like being in the world and not of it. And I was like, I get it now. It's when I'm getting it. It's like, I know what that feels like. And it's,
well, and it's in the world, not of it. Also, like, you're making it. Like, that's the thing. Like every moment of every second, you're making it. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I know most of us, including me, you know, we like forget that half the time when we're getting on with daily life, but that's really what it is.
Yep.
And my gosh, with Pluto square sun, like you, I mean, Pluto's intense energy, right? For sure. But it's all about transformation. So everything about your essence, everything about that, all the sun stuff we talked about, your vitality, your even your consciousness, and because it's in the fourth house, I would imagine that there's you know, part of your great work in this lifetime is actually uncovering more and more of your consciousness.
When people ask me how I am, for the longest time, instead of like good, bad, or whatever, I just say I'm in constant process. It's just how it is. And it's not good or bad. It's just constant process. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would add? Is there anything else you think that we have missed? It's because your south, of course, we didn't mention this, your south node is in Leo, which is, and so the sun rules your south node. Which doesn't mean that you shouldn't be focusing on the sun this life at all, but it does mean, you know, that there probably was a big, you know, a big focus on it before. Is there anything else you would add even about that? I mean, it also means that probably you come with a more natural, you know, you've been kind of running that energy for a while.
Yeah. It feels like the true me. It's like, I'm, like you said, as it comes with age, it's like I'm becoming, I'm not aging. I'm becoming. And it's exciting. I love it.
You know what's super cool about your chart? So the North Node in Aquarius, the modern ruler would be Uranus, and that's in the second house. That is like consciousness embodied.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah, right? Like, that's fun. Like, between you and Stian, I was like, you guys could go like some like alternate universes happening like at the same time. It's super cool. We'll have to get our Taurus here pretty soon, Shelly, so she can bring us back.
All right.
Back to Nah, it's good. Yeah. Well, if you think of anything else, but we still actually have Shelly will do hers, and then we may have a little bit of time. If you think of anything at the end, we can just all unmute. And then if anyone has anything else to share, we can do more too.
Great.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Shelly, my friend.
Hi.
Exciting times you're living in with Uranus on all your stuff. Let me tell people what I mean by that.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So Shelly has Sun in Taurus in the 12th house, conjunct the North Node, conjunct Mercury. And the north node, so sun is 12 degrees, north node is 6, and Mercury is 3. And right now, as we speak, Uranus is 7. So that whole little party in the 12th house is being very activated. As far as the Shelly has a Pluto conjunct Uranus in the 5th house in Virgo, and she has got south node in Scorpio in the 6th house, and we just mentioned it, north node in Taurus in the 12th house. So Shelly, I made a ton of notes, but my highlight is like, wake up now, the past is present. Like, I feel like there's like this huge, just sort of like, I don't know. And you and I, we've worked together a number of times, so you can just, jump right in, and then I can share some things, but I'd love just to hear from you of kind of how that's going and what you would add.
Well, I know the first time that I ever heard anything about North and South Node and Scorpio being prominent in my chart is when you told me that in 2012. And I never knew that, like I never understood anything about evolutionary astrology and how the nodes played into it. I had always just thought about Taurus and Taurus rising and how strong that is, that it's got to mean something that I would have both the sun and the ascendant in the same sign there. But then all that time since 2012 that I looked into that and looking into evolutionary astrology and the nodes and how that plays in, and then the houses, the 6th house and the 12th house axis, and it makes so much more sense because everything else, there's a lot of other things in my chart that point to the fact that my goal in this life, where I'm supposed to be, is simplify and chill out and relax and focus on yourself and go inward and study that and just be present and being mindful, because that South Node in Scorpio in the 6th house is all about like, all previous lives must have been in service of others, focused on other people and not myself. And so just getting away from that, but still, taking the essence of that, what my soul learned from that, but then applying that to simplifying my own life and learning how to be comfortable in solitude and being alone and using that to grow. So that's what I've been doing for several years, just trying to learn what I like and what I like to do and what makes me happy and enjoying the present moment and not be future focused and not be living in the past, but just right now. And then also channeling in on just the practicalities of that, but also looking into the spiritual aspect of that, being in the 12th house and how important that is. And then now with the Uranus, since April, it's been it's been flaring up, and it's going to be that way until early 2022. So, but cool. I think it's an opportunity. It's like, I do have these feelings of these epiphanies and just from strange places that you would never think that you would get an epiphany from. And it just is like, whoa, what? And then it just leads to all kinds of other things, but also lots of disruptions in my life. And I think everyone's having that this year with 2020 and COVID, and the rug's been pulled out of me in a lot of ways with all of a sudden, everything that I've done professionally is now non-essential. So, it's been very difficult to deal with that and wondering if that's just our new normal forever. And then how do I regroup and do something else? And I feel like that Uranus transit is probably, rather than looking at it as a negative disruption, like the disruptions are probably going to lead to something that's going to be transformative for me.
Yeah, because when Uranus comes in there, it shakes up anything that's not authentic to you, right? So it's interesting. You and Christine, different charts, but there's a similar feel. Both of you, there's a feeling about embodying your spirituality in a new way. Like it's truly, and one of the notes I wrote down for yours, Shelly, when I was thinking about, I put the sun plus its team in the 12th house. That's how it feels like when I look up there. But it needs time away to receive the universe. You know how there's a Rumi quote, like the whole universe is inside you? I feel like literally you are. So when you say alone, you're not really alone. Like that's that. And so but stillness is required there. I don't know if we've talked about this before with you, I can't remember, but because I was looking at Sun in particular, I was looking at aspects, and you have got Sun square Juno, that's in Leo in the fourth house. And so I was thinking about what that might feel like, and I mostly want you to tell me what it feels like. But some of the ideas that I came up with was that the Sun in Taurus, like, and you let off with this very well. There is a need to calm down, to find peace, find equilibrium, to be with yourself, and to choose what really matters and has value to you, to do it for you. With that square to Juno and Leo in the fourth house, there can be a challenge by commitments, in particular commitments in love and in family, because what can happen with this, and I put this down, it can be children, it can be lovers, or any kind of big Leo energy. And it doesn't even have to be Leos, but just like Leo type energy, that would demand your attention. There can be like that energy. And so Juno and Leo, though, ultimately for me, Juno is about what we need to commit to, what we need to be committed to. And in Leo, it's about being committed to what makes your heart happy. It's being committed to be able to being open-hearted, expressive, and then in the fourth house, of course, having a home that is filled with that energy as well. And the fourth house, of course, is being rooted in love. But I feel like, and maybe you can share to this, like maybe in your life prior to this, that there can be a challenge between what does everybody need from me versus I just need time to be me, because that square to me could be quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, one of the things it's double-edged sword, catch-22. I don't know. If you don't have time for solitude and to really get to know yourself, then you don't know what you need. You don't know what to ask for in others. And it's really easy when that gets complicated to just project and focus on other people. And so projecting that anxiety or discomfort with not knowing about yourself, then you just forget about it and focus on other people. And on top of that, the element that's the most lacking in my chart is fire. And I tend to be very attracted to fire people and fire energy. And it may not always be the best thing, but it's really super noticeable. And it's like this, it's like honey and I'm a bee. And it doesn't matter if it's good, bad, and like I am attracted to that and I will just gravitate to it. And I think that, and especially in relationships, so anyone with strong fire in their chart, especially Leo or any fire, but Leo Sagittarius is very, very attractive to me because I don't have a lot of that in my chart, but where I do have it, like with Juno, I can see where that would make it so in relationships in particular, that would be incredibly attractive to me. But it also is like not a red flag, but just something that I need to be aware of. And then the better I know myself, the more I can tell if that is going to be a good thing for me or a bad thing for me. And that's where my journey has gotten, where I've gotten more enlightened in the last several years, knowing myself better to know what's a good thing for me, what's not, what's going to make my heart happy, what isn't. Because what may seem exciting and cool, in the moment, being attracted to that fire energy may not necessarily be what makes me happy in the long run. So that's why I needed to have some time of solitude and reflection and just personal enlightenment to be able to know myself well enough to make those decisions and not just be like, squirrel, like, because I'm just attracted where it doesn't have any purpose or a reason behind it. So that energy for me is more focused now on, I may be attracted to this, but not.
And then, this is the thing. So, first of all, Shelly has Mars retrograde. So I mean, it's in Libra. But even if we just take the Libra side, Mars retrograde is reclaiming that your own fiery energy, so part of this is like what we don't want to own in ourselves, right? We pick other people and force them to be it for us. And so, as like Shelly's saying, it's true in my life too. The more I've recognized how I do that, I can make better choices and then start to build my own fire, for example, versus trying to make someone else play it for me. But one thing we didn't bring up, which I was thinking as you were speaking, is so you being really attracted to fire energy, and especially like to Leo and Sagittarius, that's like very solar energy. And so anytime that, again, we talked about, right? Too much sun does what? Burns you, zaps your energy, takes it. Yeah. And so what happens is you end up playing moon to somebody else's sun at the detriment of your sun. And a lot of us do that, especially depending on, how our chart is wired. So it's just something to be aware of, something big and bright and beautiful is sort of like when you want to go lay in the sun and it seems so wonderful, right? But if you stay out there too long, it's not good. Same with people in our lives, right? So yeah, it's very interesting.
Look at my moon in Pisces, the water, and in the water trine, as like, because of that strong attraction to fire and it might burn me, my moon is like this big bucket of water that'll just go and then like throw it on somebody and they don't even know what hit them and they're like, what the? And so, but if I don't control that, then it's crazy. It's absolute crazy. But water puts out fire, and boy, does it.
I you know what? I have a Cancer sun and a bunch of stuff in Cancer, and I have attracted a lot of people similar to what you described, and super excited about that fire. And I know that my own water put them out, and I know that they burned me out, and those relationships in the long run did not make it. Like.
But it's just finding that right balance. And I know that my soul gets attracted to what is imbalanced. So I need to find equilibrium with that. And so where some people say, Mars in Libra might not be the best place for it, I almost feel like just that balancing of that assertiveness and in retrograde there, that is kind of a funny thing in my chart that I think actually, if my soul actually picked this time for me to be born, which I believe it did, there was a real specific purpose in that, because I think the way it aspects everything in my chart, it actually works where it might not have worked very well otherwise. So I'm glad it's there. And also with Neptune in that water, or the water trine, but also in aspect to my sun opposition, and with Mercury too, I think it lightens me up a little bit from that serious, like I need to be comfortable in solitude and I need to find peace and simplify, but it can still be dreamy and fun. And so I like how all of that works together in my chart with my sun.
No, it's super awesome. And I would say, like, to your comment, to like maybe people, first of all, I don't buy into any of that, like any planet is any better placed, any sign versus another. We all get exactly what we need, which means your Mars in Libra retrograde is perfect for you. Now, one thing that's really about South Node and Scorpio is like you always are going to have a deep penetrating mind. Well, one of the cool things about you doing so much stuff in evolutionary astrology now is you get to use that in a constructive way instead of trying to work that out with like, romantic relationships or family relations. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's sort of like, for me, I feel like it's not about leaving the South Node behind. It's about how you integrate it in a healthy way. So you find a really constructive way to use it. So then you can live your life more towards, the other piece. And that's a beautiful thing, because you've gotten to be really good at astrology over these years. You have. It's super awesome.
I love it. It's like, I absolutely love it. And I'm so deep into it that I feel like, maybe it's a blessing in disguise with everything that's happened with COVID and difficulty with my prior profession, just trying to deal with that in higher ed. It's just, everything is changing so much that I would love to do this and integrate this into my professional life. But in the service of others, but also because it's also, while I'm serving others, it's serving me. And you can't get anything better than that. And I feel like that's what my life's calling is. And that when I've looked into all of this with how it pertains to myself, just that this was going to be something that was going to come to me later in my life after having numerous other experiences that keep nudging me in that direction, and putting Chiron into the mix there with the different aspects it makes in my chart. It's like this empowerment because of the healing that helps me help other people while I'm still helping myself the whole time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So what would you say? What advice would you, so when it's just as far as like the sun, because everybody's sun's a different flavor. Clearly sun in Taurus in the 12th house is going to feel really different than the sun in a fiery house or a fiery sign. So what advice from your perspective would you give people, or how would you say to live more their sun, or to be more their sun, or to embrace more of their sun?
I think I really like what you've done with the planets in the first, and just that perspective, because if we can look at our sun and learn about it, how it would be in all of the different houses and what that means, then that's how we truly understand life in general, because we are everything in the chart. It's just that those chart points with our different planets and stuff are just more concentrations of that energy, but we have everything in the chart. So there's no reason why we couldn't strengthen what we think might feel like a weakness by putting the sun in a different house in our chart. And then it teaches us all the different aspects with our sun sign that are more enhanced if we try a little bit harder by living in the first house or the fourth house or the seventh house or whatever. So, and in doing that, it helps us understand its own natal placement better, because then we can compare and contrast how that sun feels in the different houses, and then be able to enhance what our natal chart actually gave us, with mine being in the 12th house. I learned more about the 12th house by knowing about all the houses and how the sun would be in all the houses. And then I can focus on what my strengths and assets are in the 12th house and just make that better.
Yeah, sometimes I actually had to remind myself, I think about, because I have Pluto in the 6th house, so I have a tendency to like really kind of hunker down on that sort of like, you know, work hard, figure things out, whatever. And then to remind myself, I have a sun in the 4th house, you know, actually really remind myself, like, I need to take time out, right? Or I need to like sleep more, or I need to whatever. But you're right, like, unless we look at from another perspective. So sometimes actually getting out of our own way, going somewhere else, then you realize, wow, I really like where my home is, right? So, and we can I hadn't thought about it that way. That's great, Shelly. That's fun.
But so that's why, I mean, but it's all that kind of started when I think the first Zoom meeting that I heard you talk about that, I think you were talking about Mars in the first house. And that was so interesting to me. And it just kind of started me thinking about that and putting my planets, especially personal planets, in different houses and how that plays out. And it's fun. I like it. Yeah. And one time Rick Levine was looking at my chart, and he was talking to me about my moon and Mercury, and how Mercury in Taurus is so different in my chart than anybody else's. He's like, Mercury in Taurus has this stereotype. And he said, that is not what I'm seeing in yours, because of its aspect to the moon in Pisces, and with aspect to Jupiter, and being with the North Node and the sun. It's a totally different Mercury in Taurus. And it blew my mind. I was just like, yeah, because everything I read about Mercury and Taurus was not me. And he totally explained.
No, it's totally not. There was nothing slow about your mind whatsoever. Like, you know, this is why I say to myself and to everybody, like, we all love astrology here. Clearly we're here. But if you read anything, learn anything, it doesn't feel like you, throw it out the window. Like you are the one who knows you, right? And so part of what my passion with trying to do astrology this way is let yourself discover the archetypes more. I mean, I'm still going to read books. I love that. I love studying and learning. But I mean, the more that I let them actually arise and show me, oh, what does Mercury and Taurus mean for me, right? And then you help other people because you open a new window to what that might look like. What if all the Mercury and Taurus people are all reading that section in the same book thinking, you know, that's what they're supposed to be like, or everybody with the sun in Gemini is supposed to be this way, or everyone with one in Capricorn. You get what I'm saying? Like, this is where sometimes astrology gets to be dangerous in my mind. I mean, it actually starts to limit our growth instead of opening our growth. So this type of thing, this type of conversation we're having in my mind is just super amazing because it actually holds space for whatever wants to show up, you know, which is, I mean, I love that. So I love hearing you talk about it.
I was watching Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets with my kids, and hadn't seen that, I don't know, in 15 years at least, something like that. But profound statement at the end by, well, they were saying everyone has their gifts that they're given, their assets, their qualities, but we are our choices, not our qualities. So they were talking about how Harry Potter was trying to figure out, well, am I supposed to be in Slytherin, or why was I put in Gryffindor? And but he was told, yes, your assets, you can talk with snakes and all that. So maybe that would make sense in Gryffindor or in Slytherin, but you chose Gryffindor. Your choice is what matters. And then where you go with it. So you can all have the same gifts. So somebody could have the same chart as me, but what we chose in our lifetime to do with all of that is what makes us unique. So that's why everybody is different. And so all of these things mean different things to each one of us because of the choices we made as a result of having our personality that we have.
Yeah. And I feel like the sun sign, like what you were just describing, the sun sign is the choice we made for the central, you know, it's the central frequency. Dane Ruggiero talks about the chart and he says, hey, we all have a container, but you can change the contents anytime you want.
Yes.
You know, and to me, that's why I'm totally happy to do that. People sometimes will say about planets first, well, does it technically work? And no, it's a made up chart. I'm not saying, but you tell me what's real or what's not real, you know?
But I think it's perfect for therapy, just like you were talking about, to get to know yourself and to be able to repair what you think needs to be repaired in you by looking at it from the different perspective. Yeah. So it doesn't mean it changes everything. No. It just changes your perspective about something, the way therapy does with trauma or something like that.
I mean, to me, you have it all anyway. You just need a new road to access it. So that's what I'm saying. Like Christine was saying this with perspective, nothing's different. Just one little shift within you is.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. When Stian comes back, and Christine, if you want to unmute too, if you guys have any last thoughts, it would just be cool if we had a few more little things. Oh, there you are. Because Stian, you didn't have a chance to give your advice to people who want to embrace their sun more. What would you say to people who, you know, I don't know, maybe their sun has felt like it's been neglected for a long time. What would you suggest that they do?
Let your little light shine.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I say, and when you feel your energy draining, this is like, if things and places and whatever, or activities are draining your energy, pay attention. Cause that's a big signal.
And sometimes it's draining my energy because I have resistance to it.
Yeah, that
so
too.
Again, it's the shift of perception. It's like if I shift so I'll do that shift, and it's like, nope, it is draining my energy, and then I leave or change course, but a lot of the time it's my own resistance to what is, and it's amazing, and then suddenly it's just okay.
Cool. Stian?
I love that. Yeah, there's a fine line between accepting what is and then standing up for what is not acceptable. So my advice, I mean, I don't have any particular advice. I don't have that. So I support you, man. Like, I support you. I can only support you here and now, and the choice is yours, and you will come through it, and you'll see yourself again and again, no matter what. So we're safe here.
Yeah, that's a nice thing to like. I think if you really are in your sun, you are safe because you are in yourself, and there's nothing to not be safe about that. That's really beautiful. Anybody else have anything? Linda, do you guys have anything to share before we wrap up?
I would like to thank Stian for being so ethereal.
Oh my God.
And Shelly for being so grounded and practical.
Yes.
It's so beautiful. Good
like
medicine. Thank you.
It was like the ultimate sun opposition. It was so perfect. Yeah.
Great.
Well, Sarah, yeah, I'd like to thank you for this series. It's been absolutely marvelous. And your volunteers are the best.
They are, I agree. And Linda, thank you so much for, you make it happen, and then you make it all nice on YouTube. And really, huge thank you for everything that you do.
My pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. Well, any plans for next year? Any more? This series is over, but
I don't know. I have to spend a little Cancer 4th house time resting.
Okay. Let's have a rest. Yeah. Okay, guys, did you want to wind down now? Or?
Yeah, unless anybody else, if you guys have anything else you want to share, please, please do. I feel like I've run my mouth enough, so yeah.
Thank you, Tara. Congratulations, you did it. You went through it to the end. Yeah.
It's fun, you guys, because
and thank you. I can't wait for your book to come out on the moon.
I'm very and so it's coming out slower than we thought because Llewellyn's going to publish it now, so it's on their schedule to come out end of next year. And so I'm just we're super excited. Astrology by moonlight.
Okay, thank you all very much. And would you all please thank Tara All.